Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Today, we're doing the Intro to FlowJo and BD Research Cloud webinar. My name is Josh Luthy. I'm part of the FlowJo product innovation team here at BD. Any point throughout the presentation, if you guys have any questions, feel free to enter that into the chat, and I'll try to answer that as we go along. So the agenda for today is we'll go through just an overview of some of the features within BD Research Cloud. We'll look at creating a BDRC or FlowJo account so you can sign in. We'll take a look at structures of the organizations and groups within BDRC. We'll see some data organization within your org in BDRC. Then I'll focus more on some projects and workflows. However, there are lots of different features that I won't touch on today. I would just say that there's some other pre-recorded webinars you guys could take a look at that focus on like all the features of BDRC. But like I said, today I'll focus more on projects and workflows, and then get into a live demo using that with FlowJo. And so we'll load in some data from BDRC Research Cloud, and then we'll get into like a basic intro to FlowJo analysis. So we'll look at creating groups, drawing gates, using the table and layout editor, and then saving that information back to BDRC. So BDRC is just our online ecosystem designed for flow cytometry studies, and a great way to collaborate with teammates or colleagues in your labs. So in BDRC, you'll have access to cytometers where you can upload, save, and share cytometer configuration files. You'll have access to reagents. So if you where you can create panels using reagents from the BD catalog, or if you have any custom reagents in your lab, you can upload those as well and use those to create panels. You can manage your inventory, track titrations, calculate antibody cocktail staining sheets. There's workflows. Workflows could be something like creating a panel or any kind of experimental workflow, like I mentioned, titrations or cocktail staining sheets. And with those, you can basically track and know who did what and when they did those with timestamps, and being able to assign those specific tasks to different users within your groups. There's a really handy experiments section where you can create BD FACSDIVA software templates away from the cytometer. So that can be a big time saver. There's easy copy paste features in there, and one-click in-by-in plots. And then of course there's file storage. So we can upload, organize, and share data with colleagues on BDRC. You can set permissions and determine who has access to different data, and set permissions at the user level. Those analysis files can open directly in the FlowJo software. And so if you want to do even like share an analysis with a teammate that's in your group and has access to the files, you could even simply send them the workspace file that you have opened previously and saved from BDRC. And if they have access to that same group and data set, when they open that workspace, it will just know to pull in those data from the Research Cloud. I'll show you a different way to load data from BDRC. So to create an account, we can go to bdresearchcloud.com. And if you already have a FlowJo portal account, you can sign in directly with those credentials just by entering your email and password. If you don't have an account, it's real simple. You just click that create account button down here, and it'll help you set up an account real quick so you have access to BDRC and some of those free tools available in there. So the first time you sign in to BDRC, you'll see the home page. And this is basically what it looks like, where up towards the top, we have the different orgs, and then your personal account area here. So you can switch between different organizations you might be a part of. But when you first sign in, you're brought to your individual org, where at this point, we're not able to collaborate with anybody, but you can still go through the dashboard down here to explore the different features within BDRC. And across the top, you'll see tabs as well, but these are the same options that are down here in the dashboard view. So now looking a little bit at the structure of BDRC and how those are organized. So when you first create a BDRC account, you're assigned to an individual org. And like I said, this is your personal org where you can do some solo work and kind of explore the features in BDRC. But if you want to collaborate, then you'll want to create a separate org for your lab. And this will open up some features there. And so over on the right, we see how everything's kind of organized in BDRC. So once you have an org, you can create groups within your particular org. And these represent users working together on one or more projects, okay? And projects are found within a group, and those contain all the relevant files, workflows, and data. And users within a group can see all the projects and data from that particular group. Okay, when you invite a user to an org, you must assign them to a particular group so that they can have access to any of those projects or workflows. And of course, you can have multiple users in your group, in your org, and you can assign a user to more than one group. Okay, there's no limits either to the number of groups you can create within an org. And the groups and projects basically just help us organize your data and determines who has access to that information. And we'll see a little later on how we can kind of control who has access to what information and how you can set user level permissions. If you're a larger institution and need many people to access data from different departments, I'd recommend this structure here on the left. And it's basically the differences like how you might name your orgs and groups. Let's see, I have a question. Or maybe someone raised their hand. If you have a question, you can just type it into the chat. So on the left, like if you're a larger institution, I might, when you're creating an org, give a detailed name for the institution. And then same thing as you go creating different departments or labs, or sorry, groups, I would name those specifically based on your lab or department. If you're a smaller lab, I might just name the org based on your lab, and then within that, your groups would just be named appropriately in that way. So a couple different ways you can set up that structure there within BDRC. So like I mentioned earlier, when you first sign in, you're brought to your individual org. Okay, and this is where you can perform some solo work and check out different features. But if you want to collaborate with users, you want to first create an organization. and select the appropriate license type. So here we'll look at the free essentials license, where here you can invite up to 9 other users. And each of those users will get 5 gigs of storage space, so a total of 50 gigabytes for that free license for that org that you create. So after you create the organization, you can send invites to users so they can join your org. And basically, you just do that through email. So you can enter their emails, multiple up here if you like. And at that same time, you can set permission levels. So we have some options here, some like drop down permissions to set some pre-configured permission levels, or you can manually go through and toggle permission levels here as well. And then finally, you'll click the invite, and then that'll send the email to any of those users. And then they'll have to accept that email so that they are now active and part of your org. Okay, next we can go to the groups and projects tab, and this is where we can create different groups and projects within those groups. At the same time, you can invite, if you didn't in like the previous step, let me take a step back. So here, when you're inviting users, you also have the option to add them to a group. So at the very beginning, if you already have some groups created, you could send the invite to users and add them to a group at the same time. But you would need groups already created at that point. If you didn't have them, you could invite all your users and then come over here and then create groups and then invite users to the different groups as you create them. Within this section, there's also additional permission levels that you can set for any of those users that you add to your different groups. So here I created a BSL2 lab group and a couple different projects within that group. So after creating projects, we could create a workflow. So here I'm showing just a very basic example of a workflow where basically only setting up a single step in the workflow just for an analysis within FlowJo. Workflows can be much more involved and include things like panel design, staining procedures, titrations, and all those are tracked at a user assigned level. And so once you've set up your particular workflow, assign it to a project, and you click design workflow, you'll still need to, in the next step, you'll see to define any procedures. So it could be like multiple steps within that workflow. So you'll go through and define those particular steps, such as like panel design, for example, could be a step within the workflow. And then the important thing is to publish that workflow. And once it's published, it's now available for the rest of the users. And so here's a particular step that once I've published, I can get in and modify that particular step. And if there's any files you want to upload to this particular workflow, you can do that at this point as well. So in this case, again, I'm just kind of creating a very basic step, which I'm calling FlowJo analysis. And so for this one, I would upload my relevant FCS files so that that workflow can be assigned to somebody and basically open that workflow in FlowJo to pull down the data files and begin that analysis. So after you create the groups, the projects, upload files, you can actually come over to the data tab, and you can visually see like how that's organized and what data's been uploaded and part of the project. Here we can see the product innovation org, the BSL2 group that I made, the project and workflow with the associated data. And also, I'd just like to point out, you don't have to create a workflow in order to upload data. You could also just upload at the project level. So if I were to back out of this view, choose the project, there's an option to like upload data. So it would be outside of a workflow step at that point and just kind of freely available to anyone with the permissions to view data in that particular group. And so BDRC is connected to FlowJo, so it makes it real easy now to share that data and open a workspace or load FCS files that have been uploaded to BDRC directly in FlowJo. So from the Add Samples button is the option to load a sample from BD Research Cloud. From the Save As button, we can save a workspace back to BDRC. And so this is a great way to just manage your workspaces, and it's going to just save and update and manage all that for you without creating like multiple versions on your local hard drive there. From the Open button, you can also like open a workspace from BD Research Cloud and then continue your analysis. So here I'm just showing what it looks like now when we're going to open from BDRC. We'll get this new window that pops up and we can see the different org that I'm a part of. And then if you select a project, you can see any available workflows or data files associated with them. And when you open a workspace from BDRC for the first time, it actually in the background is downloading those FCS files to your local computer so that those files are in a local cache folder. And that ensures the best performance when doing the analysis and those calculations on your computer. Otherwise, right, if things are in the cloud, the data connection would be reliant on your internet connection speed, and that could just lead to poor performance. So those things are downloaded and kept in a local cache folder. You can choose to keep those files in the cache folder or clear it out, but when they're kept in the cache, the next time you go to like open that same workspace, they no longer need to be downloaded and they just load quickly into your workspace. And then once you save, it just automatically goes back to BD Research Cloud, just making it really seamless and simple to use. So I'm sure all of you are aware of FlowJo at this point, but it's instrument agnostic platform for single cell cytometry analysis. We have a complete set of compensation tools. It allows for interactive exploration of your data, and it has many advanced machine learning algorithms that are both native to FlowJo application. And then also we have a slew of different plugins that are available for download as well. Okay, let's jump into the live demo part. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, so here's BD Research Cloud. And so here I just sign in with my portal credentials. If you don't have one, you can click on create account and you can create BDRC account here. So I'll go ahead and sign in. Someone asks, is there any fee to use BD Research Cloud? Nope, there's not. You can create a free account, and that's will give you essentially like this. So like this is my individual org right here, right? And so you have access to all these tools here, and you can take a look and play around with that. If you want to collaborate with anybody, though, you'll need to, like it says here, to invite users to collaborate, click your name in the upper right and create an organization. So if I go over here and say create an organization, we can see some different license types here. So for an individual org, right, you have a data storage limit of 1 gigabyte, and you can create up to 5 different active workflows. And then here's the other free org. This is the Essentials org. And this is where you can invite up to 9 other people, and each user will have 5 gigs of space. So anything above that, the professional, the premium, you get more storage per user. As far as available seats, that's custom and something you can discuss with the licensing team. So yeah, you could essentially then come here and say create free org, and then fill out this information to create an organization. Okay, I won't do that. We already have an org here. So I'll switch over to that org. And so from here, leaving my individual org, I can go to another one that was created. And then at that point, we could come over to like users. And then this is where we could invite additional users to the org. So we come over to invite, and then we can, start emailing different people and add them to our org. If you had any groups, right, you could choose to add them to a group at that point, which you may not have any at this point. So here's some permission levels that you can set here for the different users as you invite them. So do they have the ability to manage cytometer inventory? Can they manage custom reagents in the inventory? Are they able to view workflows outside of the group? Can set permissions if they're able to view and edit files outside of the group, or if they can delete files within the org. And then turn on or off the option to manage panel staging sheets. They can set those and then invite different users. So I'll come over here to groups and projects. So here's some existing groups. Let's go ahead and create a new group. I'll call it ConaLab and give it a description. Click submit. It'll create our group over here, and then we can see it just gives it like automatically a default project and project name. So if you wanted to rename your project, you could do that here, and then give it any kind of description. Okay, and then at the same time, so we're still in this group details. So if you wanted to add anybody from your group, we could invite someone else. So for example, I can invite Chris And here, if I'm inviting from the group, I have also additional permissions I can set here if they're allowed to manage group users, the projects, or any of the studies. So we'll say add user and invite. So we can see now Chris is part of the group. We can check if there's any active workflows at this point, but there's nothing. We just created it. And then some extra details about the group. Okay, so we have a group, Lab, and a new project within that group. And so now if we go over to data, we can see what that did basically was within the product innovation org created this Lab project. And we can see if there's any like project files, right? This is where we could now upload any kind of information we want to make available to the different users. So this would be at the project level. But you could go essentially a little bit deeper and create a workflow. And so I'll just demonstrate again like a very simple workflow. So if we filter by, here's all workflows for like lots of different groups, right? But we could filter it down and just see what's available for this new lab I made, this new group, but there's nothing yet. So over here on the right, we wanted to create a workflow. There's some default ones. You might see, I have some extra stuff here, some experimental things that probably wouldn't be available to you guys, but create panel, titration image, and custom workflow should be there for you guys. So for example, if I wanted to create a custom workflow, you can click start. And then we can just give it a name. FlowJo analysis. And then if there's any kind of description, then we can choose which project is this part of. And then I'll say design workflow. Okay, and then so notice it says this workflow is inaccessible to other users until published. So before I publish, up here in the top right, I'm going to just define this step a little bit further. And you can add multiple steps. So it could be, panel design, it could be one step, and then it could be, staining, titrations, running the experiment, and then analysis. So it could be multiple steps, and if within each step you could assign to different users. So for example, I could just assign this to myself. You can set some other options here if you want to allow lab notes or upload of files. So click save. So I have step 1 data analysis. And now when I, under publish, click submit. And now it says it's ready. And so from here, I can now upload files, FCS files that might be part of this particular step in the workflow. And if I'm just uploading files, it asks, do I want the files to be associated to a workspace? So yes, I can say yes, and then BDRC will create a FlowJo workspace automatically for me, however I name it here. So I just give my workspace a name, say create and update, and then it'll start uploading the different files to the group. So at this point, if we could go back and look at the data, and we would see, as things upload, Lab project, now I have this new workflow. Okay, and it's created this workspace for me. and then uploaded those files. So that's super handy. Don't have to load anything. And so now let's take a look. What do we do in FlowJo once we have that workflow and data already uploaded for us? So basically, I can come over here to FlowJo and say File, Open from BD Research Cloud. And we'll see this new window, maybe you're not familiar with, but it links up to our BDRC account, and we can see the different orgs, okay, and our different projects. So here's Kona Lab, and we can see down below there's a workflow associated. And then the files in my workspace. So I'll choose workspace, click open, and we can see there's a little message downloading code analysis. But at this point, it's downloading those files from the Research Cloud into my local cache folder, and then opens them up in my workspace that was created for me. And notice at the top, as the name of the workspace, and then it says BD Research Cloud. So we know that this was open from BDRC. Any steps that I perform here are going to be synced automatically just back to that file that if we go and look, it's just going to update this workspace file automatically. Okay, so because this is also partly a intro to FlowJo webinar, I just wanted to show you guys as well some of the basics of using FlowJo. So let's first go ahead and create a group. So I'll just call this gating. So when you, I'm going to go back, I'll double click on this to open the modify group window. So if I was creating this workspace and analysis for the purpose of creating a template, for example, for use later, we might want to set up some sample inclusion criteria right here. And then make sure that this checkbox live group is selected. And basically, whenever new data files are loaded into a template, and you have a group that's live group, and you've set up inclusion criteria, files will get automatically loaded into that group based on any criteria you set here. So for example, if I know that I have a file in my file name, this is a keyword, $FIL, file names written to any FCS file. If within the name of my file contains the string LD for lab donor, I want them to go into this group that I called gating. Okay, I'll click apply changes. And then there you can see there's also some other inclusion criteria here that came from the markers that were part of these data files. So by default, we always have the all samples and compensation group. I created this other one called gating, now where I'll do some group owned gating analysis. Okay, so up at the top of the graph window, we have the different gating tools. And here I'm just going to grab a polygon tool and click and move my mouse around to draw a gate. Call those lymphocytes, press enter, double click within that gate to open up my next window. And then next we might want to draw a gate on forward scatter area versus height. And I'll use a auto gate tool Well, this one just traces along the density boundaries of this population. And I'll draw a kind of tight gate right here, call it single cells. These are the ones that pop up here are part of favorites. So we have some favorites by default. You can add other strings into your list of favorites if they're commonly used population names in your analysis. So single cells, I'll double click within that gate, go down another level, and I have a live dead stain. I'll draw another gate, call these live. Within my live, I will draw this quad gate here. And then I'll go into Q1 and switch to a few different parameters here. And just quickly draw some gates here. And so now I have this gating hierarchy, which I can now select all those gates and drag up to the gating group and have those all group applied. Okay, so come up here, close all graph windows. If I open the layout, see, I might want to create some overlays. I'm gonna sort these differently real quick. So you can click along these headers, double click to like sort based on the file names. If you had another keyword, for example, maybe you add a keyword and then given numerical values, you can sort your samples in the workspace in those numerical values. But here, I'm just gonna, again, create an overlay so that I can perform, set up a layout basically for batching. But I'm not gonna perform the batching yet because the purpose of this is to create a template. So when you're creating a template, you wanna make overlays, but not generate any batches yet. So you'll set them up pre-batch. There you go. And so these are just overlaid histograms. I can right click and choose a different type of overlay. So for example, I'll do a staggered offset. If I wanted to like reposition the layers or which histograms in the front or in the back, I can do that from the legend. So for example, if I wanted this one up front, slide them up to the front. And let's add some more information here. So maybe I wanted, in addition to just this visual, maybe I wanted some statistics as well. So I could come to back to the workspace, choose my population and say add statistic. And maybe I want the median of those three markers. So my phospho ERK, perforin, interferon gamma, add all those. And then here's a nice shortcut. If I select my statistics here, I can right click and say copy analysis to group. and it automatically adds them up at the group level. And now they're applied to the rest of my samples. Now, if I want to use this later to batch, and if I have more than the 4 files as I do in this workspace, but I still want sets of these 4 files overlaid and generated for each set of 4 files, I need to set up my iteration band and save that as a template pre-batch. So basically I'm choosing the group. I'm in my gating group, and I'm going to iterate by a panel of 4 because I've overlaid 4 different files. And so if I had 12 samples on my next workspace, then it's going to overlay those 4 at a time. So I'd get 3 outputs like this of 4 different groups, or 3 different groups overlaid. So we say panel of 4, and I'm going to have them in 2 columns. So similar type of thing if we're creating a table as well. Maybe I want to create a table of some median statistics. So we would basically just set it up, group, iterate by sample in this case. So I want to pull statistics from each sample. Okay, but I'm not going to generate my table at this point. Just going to leave it like that. And then leave this as it is. And then I can say file, export as template. And then this one here, my template, I'm going to save this one just on my desktop. Okay, so this isn't going back to BDRC at this point. I'm just putting it on my desktop. However, if I wanted to now generate the batches or any other, or at least the data I have in this particular workspace, for example, I could say, create that table. I have that information here. This one, I only have the 4 samples, so there's not really any additional batches to run through at this point. But if I loaded in more files, I could, or I could always create, another type of overlay or plots here showing. So here I say right click and I can look at ancestry, so I can see everything that's leading up to this population here. I can right click and I can say scale to page, and it automatically adjusts page breaks for me, sets everything within the page. I can also drag over statistics. So maybe I want a table of stats in here. Okay, so now maybe I want to iterate by sample and create this kind of output for the rest of the samples in this particular group. I'll go to a new layout, 2 columns, keep them on separate pages. And I'll say create batch report. There we go. And then maybe I want to export that image as a PDF. This is my batched PDF, and I'll save that to my desktop as well. It's inside my project files folder. Okay, so with that analysis, I can just say, if I want to save this workspace back to BDRC, I can just click save, and notice down here in the right, it says uploading. So it's uploaded that workspace, the changes there, back to BD Research Cloud. Also, just to point out, when you download or open a workspace from BDRC, and like I mentioned, it's downloading those files. They're kept in a cache folder. If you ever need to clear the cache, or you don't want them to be stored there, you could go to Preferences, Performance, and there's a Show BDRC Cache folder. And so from here, I could get to any of the files that have been downloaded previously, or any of my different workspaces. Okay, if you want to clear anything out of your cache, you can delete them from there. It just means the next time you go to open a workspace, it's going to have to re-download those from BDRC. But things, like I mentioned, are kept locally in your cache for the best performance. Okay, so I've got that analysis that's been saved and uploaded back here. So maybe if I refresh and see a timestamp update. Yeah, 8:45. So I saved those other files on my desktop. So maybe if I wanted to upload any of those things, like my template, I could upload that. Maybe my batched PDF. There you go. I got my template, and then some analysis I've done in my batch report PDF uploaded to my workflow. So I can come back to my workflow tab. And at this point, if I go to kind of filter down by my particular group I'm interested in, I can see I have an active workflow called FlowJo analysis. If I select that, I can see still shown as active here. Click in again, I can say add a note that I've completed that analysis. And then right at this point, I can say finalized my workflow. We'll see up here it says completed. These are other past completed workflows from all groups. Okay, so if we had created like multiple steps within that workflow, maybe for different users, once this first step one's completed, then step two, is ready for the next user to do their part of the workflow. Okay, let me see. All right. I think that's most of what I wanted to show you guys. Here's some additional resources. So we have online our searchable documentation. So docs.flowjo.com. And then FlowJo University has a lot of great short videos to watch with specific topics you can go over. So that's on our main website, flowjo.com/learn, FlowJo University. And then we have a lot of pre-recorded webinars as well. So if you wanted to see a more in-depth information about BD Research Cloud. There was one at the beginning of the month that I'd recommend going and take a look at. That's a great one, and there's other ones, high dimensional analysis and FlowJo, others similar to this, where it's like using BDRC with FlowJo. So lots of great information there. Great place to start. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to tech support, just FlowJo.com, and of course I have my personal email, so you don't have it on here, but let's see, the very beginning slide, you can see my name, but my email is just joshua.luthy@bd.com. So you're welcome to reach out to me as well. Okay, so does anyone have any other questions or anything before we end? Okay, well, thank you guys for joining today. Feel free to reach out with any questions. And again, here's the resources if you guys want to see any of that information there.